All right, I'd like to call the Planning Commission meeting order today. 4 members are present, so we have established quorum. 1 member is absent. There is a sign-in sheet that's on the front table if you're planning on speaking today. If you didn't sign in yet, just please try to sign in before leaving as well. We'll take the sheet just to try to get the name pronunciation correct. If you do plan on speaking at today's Planning Commission, we do ask that you swear or affirm to this commission to tell the truth to the best of your knowledge. You don't need to stand. All you have to do is say, "I do." So, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth to this commission today? All right, I appreciate that. We do have a public hearing as our first item on the agenda. It is concerning bicycle parking it is a zoning code change. The recommendation has been, I believe, published on the website for quite some time. I think this has been a year or so in the making. So it's a long process, but I would like to bring it to a vote today. Before we do that, I'd like to ask if there's any discussion on the bicycle recommendations that you have. I have some copies here if anyone doesn't have one quite in front of them. Okay. Mayor?
Again, this is part of our master plan in terms of bicycle and pedestrian plan that was put forward 2 years ago. The idea is how to accommodate more places for bicycles, and one of the things we're seeing was a lack of bicycle racks in various areas, and whether it's on all the way from East State Street where people go and bicycle ride up the bike path to get someplace and go shopping. There's not adequate storage, and again, it's just adding another piece to make our city a more bike-friendly city.
All right.
And again, it covers just requirements for restaurants, areas, square foot areas, and multi-unit, residential areas, with a definition of bike racks as well, bike parking, I believe.
All right. Any other comments? For the time being, I will go over the recommendation real quickly, just to refresh everyone's memory. It was to, number 1, add a definition to Title 23-1001, zoning code definition, that is. It's bicycle parking, a rack to which the frame at least one wheel can be secured with a user-provided U-lock or padlock and cable. The City of Athens shall maintain a list of appropriate bicycle parking racks to assist developers. Change 2 was change the definition of parking area in that same section from the current definition is a parking area, any public or private area under or outside of a building or structure designed and used for parking motor vehicles, including parking lots, garages, and legally designated areas of public interest. And that definition would be changed to a parking area. Any public or private area under or outside of a building or structure designed and used for parking motor vehicles and bicycles, including parking lots, garages, and legally designated areas for public interest. We would also add a new table to the bulk controls for off-street bicycle parking. Those uses would be all commercial, retail, restaurant uses, or similar facilities. The minimum requirements for that use would be a minimum of 4 bicycle parking spaces plus 2 additional for every 10,000 square feet after the first 10,000 square feet. The other use would be multi-unit residential. So this would include 3 units or greater. That minimum requirement for off-street bicycle parking would be a minimum of 1 bicycle parking space for each permitted bedroom. This is similar, not part of the definition, but this is similar to current vehicle bulk controls.
Requirements, yeah.
Yes. And then continue on with the requirement. If required number of bicycle parking spaces exceeds 16, then at least half of the required bicycle parking spaces shall be covered, following guidelines in the city's adopted bicycle and pedestrian plan. Looks like there's a typo in there, but we'll make sure that's correct. All right, and this, the one exempt zone from this recommendations is the B2D zone.
Which would be the uptown area.
Exactly. So the end of Court Street, which is B3, would not be exempt to this, but most of the rest of Court Street would be. Any other comments here, or RJ?
No.
If that's the case, any comments in the audience? Yes, if you'd either the table or if you come to the podium, either places are mic'd, just state your name and street you live on. Thank you.
My name is Chris Nisley, and I live at 24 Old Coach Road in Athens.
Okay.
And I'm here today on behalf of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee. City Planner Paul Logue presented to us yesterday to that group, and it's a group that's met about 4 years. And this is the group that has brought forward the Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan for the City of Athens. And informally, there was consensus amongst the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee members to support this bicycle parking recommendation. And what I'd like to do is add that there are 3 documents that I think guide the community and Athens on this. One of them is the recently adopted Ohio University Sustainability Plan. And then we also have our city bicycle and pedestrian plan that was adopted by City Council. And then, as Mayor Weil referenced, we have the city comprehensive plan, which, as one of its major points, promotes improved transportation, including expanded bikeways. So I think that incorporating this parking recommendation into the city code will help us move forward to encourage the bicycling in the community. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else in attendance would like to make comments on this recommendation? All right. Any further discussion by commission members? All right. I would like to put forward a motion to approve or to approve the recommendations bicycle parking and send it next to the city council. With no changes. So second?
Second.
All right. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of making the recommendations?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, no opposition. Thank you, Shirley. Okay, the next item on our agenda, unless there's any further discussion, is, it does close our public hearing. We do have a couple cases on our agenda, and that is number 1104, Panachinal Properties, Athens Sun and Fund, Title 41, and number 1102, Integrated Services, 10 Graham Drive. Both are Title 41 site plan reviews. The first one is the 1104, Panachinal Properties, Athens Sun and Fund, Title 41. This has already been voted on by the commission. On what, John, do you know what date that was approved?
7/20.
7/20. Okay. And it has been brought back to our commission due to, I think the problem was there was no sign displayed on the property. John, if you'd like to discuss that matter a little bit?
Yes, I'd like to explain, hence the reason we're here for both of these as of right now. Athens City Code Title 41.05, public notification, requires that a sign be placed on the subject property indicating the pending consideration of the site plan review. Although we have never done this, it has come to our attention that we have erred in doing so, and with that said, we have brought back the most recent Title 41 cases that have not yet begun construction, and we have posted signage on the properties for the past 2 weeks. It is my recommendation that the chair of the Planning Commission ask if there are any comments to the site plan review of the proposed project, and if not, the Planning Commission move to accept the project as was approved with specific conditions at the time it was previously reviewed previously.
Okay.
I'd also like to read the initial intent of Title 41.01. States that this section is intended to provide a means and process to review the proposed development of sites to minimize negative off-site impacts, address traffic and pedestrian circulation, and provide for public safety and efficient public services and utilities. The intent is not to prevent construction of the project. This review does not replace other applicable sections of the Athens City Code. So the first project that we have here excuse me, is the Athens Sun and Fund project at 518 Richland Avenue. The applicant is Mike Knoll. That project was heard at the Planning Commission meeting and approved on July 20th of this year. There is a new site plan attached showing many of the conditions that were to be met that Mr. Knoll agreed to do. They were very minimal, and I think from this point we just see if there's any comments, or if you have any comments, and instead of bringing it back up, we just go go from there.
Right, so the changes that were made were just the ones, pretty much, usually we always have kind of open-ended on the public works items that have to be on the final site plan. No one does the final site plan until
As we discussed, there was a recalculation of the storage area from the showroom area that we determined that 15 parking spaces were the required amount of parking spaces, and that's what is shown. The curb cut needed to be reduced to 20 foot. The Planning Commission actually voted to allow 22 foot at the last meeting. The drawings have been revised to show the 20 foot. I can discuss that with Mike because I think he does need to change one thing, but it's very minimal. 3 parking spaces on the north side that did not meet code, they have been revised. They're okay now. And the parking spaces on the south side did not meet code in depth. The spaces near the building, we agreed that 18 foot in depth with a 2 foot over the sidewalk on a 5 foot sidewalk would accommodate the 20 foot depth there. The spaces on the south side still need to be 20 foot, and he is showing them at 18 foot. But the aisle between the buildings, or between the parking spaces, is at 24 foot. So it has definitely the room to take it down to 22 and increase those parking spaces by 2 foot, and that's what we had talked about before, and allow his curb cut to be 22 foot wide as well.
Okay.
He did go the shade tree in the last meeting, and they did require 2 trees in front of the building, and that is also shown on the revised drawing. So those were the only changes other than the comments from the Director of Engineering and Public Works, and you see attached there some of the revisions that Andy would like to see, but they were mostly in regards to stuff that would be submitted at the time the project is submitted for final approval.
Okay. Any comments, Commissioner?
So most of the engineering and public works is mostly drainage. It looks like catch basins, runoff.
The first one was simply that he wanted an invert called out and either a relative value or acceptable value. They didn't have anything on there. The other part of it has been met, and the water supply just wanted a detail on the backflow prevention. And the storm sewer was there was a bit of an encroachment across the corner of the property that they'd like to see it just kind of turned and dealt with accordingly. As well as plumbing plans and water plans provided, which is obviously done at the time it's submittal. They'll have their state permits approved by then.
Okay. Thank you.
And again, the trucks that are delivering material, we had talked about, I guess the mayor talked about initially, just a concern if there was like much of an overhang into the street or close to the street. But this resolves that issue as far as the trucks being able to get back in there and drop off inventory.
I think it's best for Mr. Knoll to speak to that, what type of trucks come in there.
That was one of the reasons we were shooting for the 22 feet, making it easier for the trucks to back in. And because if you don't, they'll just run across the grassed areas and landscaping at that point. But yes, we do have adequate depth. And it's also the same pickup area for trash refuge at the same time. With that, that's why we located it at the rear of the parking lot, so it's a straight shot into it.
Any questions for Mr. Knoll or John? Are there any comments from members in this Athens in attendance? The sign was posted, you said, for 2 weeks?
2 weeks ago today, yes.
Does it give a length of time that the sign is
It's
to be
the time
posted?
the application is submitted.
Any further comments from Planning Commission?
I move we accept Title 41, the plats of the preliminary approval, I think.
Second. RJ seconds. All those in favor? Any opposition? And one abstaining?
That's you.
And any further discussion on this case? Okay. Next case we have is number 1102, Integrated Services at 10 Graham Drive. This again is a Title 41 site plan review and under similar situation, correct? John?
Yes, this plan was reviewed by the Planning Commission on, what was the last meeting? March 16th, I believe it was.
Okay.
On my agenda. Yes, March 16th of this year. This is for, we need to clarify what we're doing here on this one. There's going to be, what I like to do on this is we've got this application that came through the Planning Commission was approved on March 16th with a few conditions. We did not post a sign for this one, so again, I'm asking to do the same thing that we just did for the last project. Also, they have resubmitted for it. This would be what we call the elevated version, the building being in the air. So we basically are going to be voting on 3 different issues today. The first one is going to be a revision, or the posting of the sign to kind of go back and clarify this one that was done in March, just like we did the other one. And then the application that they submitted for the elevated version again of the exact same project, and then also a version of the building on the ground, which we will do that one last. So in all honesty though, all 3 of them are going to be the exact same discussion in regards to bulk controls, setbacks, etc. The footprints are identical and so on and so forth. So that being said, the March 16th project that came through the BZ or through the Planning Commission, there were again, that project was approved by the Planning Commission, and there were some conditions that needed to be met. As we had before, most of them were, again, in regards to engineering and public works, and I'm trying to find the staff report on that one here, Paul, you got it?
Yeah, the staff review is dated at March 16th.
Right, okay, and then there was some issues, the parking issue. If you like, I can go through each one of them for you. The parking, at that time, there were 4 units, at 2 parking spaces per unit. 8 parking spaces were required, and there was 8 provided. The building would be required to be registered as a 2, 2, 2, and 2, meaning 4 2-bedroom units on the rental permit. 8 parking spaces were originally deeded for 11 Graham Avenue across the street. That will have to be reduced to 6 spaces. Due to a recalculation of usable square footage at 11 Graham and the addition of 1 more parking space at 11 Graham, only 6 spaces are now required to be deeded to 11 Graham. And that quitclaim deed has been submitted to my office pending approvals today. So the required amount of parking spaces on site will be 6 for 11 Graham and 8 for 10 Graham, a total of 14 parking spaces, which they do have on site. The 2 buildings combined will be required to have 20 parking spaces, and that is what they will have.
So you said 6 of the 14, or how many are going to be on 10 Graham?
On 10, there will be 14 total parking spaces, 8 of them for the proposed building, 6 of them for the building across the street.
Okay.
All right, continue, thank you.
The front setback met code, the rear setback meets the R2 requirements since the lot is abutting an R zone. The code does specify that in a B3, if it's abutting an R zone, that the rear yard setback for that zone is met, and that zone is R3 or R2, and it is a 30-foot required rear yard setback, and the building does have a 30-foot required setback. Side yard setbacks meet code. Lot coverage is acceptable. There is no lot coverage requirements in the B3. The new regulations that were put forth for lot coverage only were for R zones, residential zones. The use for this particular building that we're discussing now and the new application for the building being elevated does meet the definition in our code of a story. So that part of a building between the surface of a floor and the ceiling immediately above is the definition. So this is an elevated building where a first floor residential would not be permissible in a B3. The fact that it is elevated, it is now permissible. They did go through Shade Tree Commission and back on the original project at 10 Graham Avenue, or excuse me, at 11 Graham. At that point, there were some discussions. They said they did have adequate room to put in the remaining amount of trees, but they are going to be on the September agenda to clarify some specific locations and types of trees. So when that time comes about. So those would be the changes that were made to the project since then. If you want to call them changes, the clarifications since that application and the fact that the sign was posted.
Right, there's
So-
sort of the conditions that when we approve something, these conditions need to be met.
Right.
And those would be, as long as they were met.
And in regards to engineering and public works, all the conditions have been met there. The only conditions that Andy was still looking for was that provide backflow prevention details and that the 6-inch sanitary lateral coming out of the building, or it should be a minimum of 6-inch sanitary lateral coming out of the building, and the plans show 4-inch. Those were his only two comments that he had in regards to the project. Everything else was sufficient.
Okay. And just clarification again, the Shade Tree looked at both the Graham 11 and Graham 10 for when they
At the same
increased
time,
the
correct.
parking spots. So as long as the size of the lot did not change,
No.
the Shade Tree requirements would be the same. So
That is correct.
Okay, so again, we're looking at the elevated one that was approved by our office, or commission, I'm sorry, on 3/16 of this year. Any comments from the commission to start things off?
Go ahead, sir.
RJ?
I was just going to suggest maybe we open up to the
That'd be-
floor.
Okay, well, actually, I was going to ask, the sign has been up for 2 weeks as well for this one?
Correct.
Okay, just want to be sure. That's all I had.
And if you'd like, I can quickly touch on the ground floor version. The only difference between the two is in case there's any comments,
Yeah, go ahead.
The Board of Zoning Appeals did grant a substitution request for the ground floor version to allow first floor residential. So other than that, all the requirements of setbacks, parking, et cetera, are identical to what we're talking about on this version. So everything is the same.
Okay.
And if I remember, this is out of floodplain, and the only
Correct.
requirement for raised area is the B3 requirement for...
That is correct.
Okay,
For use.
for use.
Okay, go with RJ's recommendation. Now, I'd like to open it to comments from members in attendance of the City of Athens. I think, do we have the sign-in sheet? Okay. I think just to make it easy, rather than forcing people to raise hands and things, we'll just go in order on that list. And if you signed in, I'll ask. Do you want to see?
One more sign, and I see.
Okay. There'll be an opportunity. If you missed the sign-in, let's go ahead and get started now. We'll bring it around to the last people that maybe got in a little later.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll just go in order. If your name's on here, you're not interested in speaking, we'll just go to the next one, that's fine. Casey Elliott? Okay. Moat Greek? Okay.
There's
And-
also people signed up for the public hearing, so they may
Yeah,
not be...
I do apologize for, state your name if you're not interested in talking, but I do want to get everyone out there. Well, we could do it another way. That just seemed, I don't want to go through all this list if some of you were just here for the public hearing, so I think we will approach it by the raising of hands. I hate to do it that way, but let's first row first. How's that sound? Go ahead, thank you.
Name and address, please.
If you would, come to, was it the podium or the table? Podium, please, sorry. Make it harder on you. State your name and just your street you live on, be sufficient.
Hi, my name is Bruce Mitchell, 191 East State Street, Athens, and I'm speaking on behalf of my wife Susan and myself. We live just down the street, about 6 doors across from my sister's place, which is the Center for Battered Women. And they moved into their new location about, I believe it was between 16 and 18 years ago. And when that happened, there was a huge controversy in the neighborhood. People were very fearful of battering husbands showing up 2 o'clock in the morning to find their wife and beat her up again. And
I'm sorry, I don't want me to interrupt, but I do want to lay out a little bit more groundwork before we get too much further. There are a lot of people in attendance today, so I do want to keep comments to a couple minutes, just for race time, which I'm sure you're going to be efficient at that. And then it is a site plan review, so we can only really discuss issues that have to do with the site, the use as a residence, the sort of conditions that are set by code. So we can't sort of, just, I guess, try to gear your comments towards that. That'd be my recommendation. Sorry again for interrupting.
that's all right. So a lot of people were fearful of this new addition to our neighborhood, and there was a petition passed around by people that were very fearful, and there was a lot of miscommunication and misnomers about this center. Well, my wife got a petition in favor of my sister's place and circulated it with more of the facts of the matter. And my sister's place moved into the location. It's been a wonderful addition to our neighborhood. If anything, it's raised the property values because they keep it up so nicely. There's no drunken mad husband showing up at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's very well cared for. It's very well supervised, and I'm sure that this one will be too. So I understand people have fears about this, but this is really the type of thing that helps the Athens community prevent homelessness rather than people sleeping in the doorways and in their cars. This provides a valuable service to our community, and the fact that it's going to be supervised from across the street just gives me great confidence. So I hope the zoning board will, or the planning commission will see their way clear on this, and I know they've done a good job of trying to dot all their T's and I's and T's, and so we're all for it, and I want to thank the people that are doing this, and also bringing the money to Athens, so thank you very much.
It's from the first row. First row on this side. Go ahead.
Relevant to
You go ahead. Please, this gentleman on the left. Yep.
Dr. Walker.
I'm sorry, I don't know.
We're pointing at you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll keep this very brief. I'm the father of a son that was diagnosed.
Name and address.
Thomas Walker, 12312 State Route 13, Middlefield, 45761.
That's the time.
I'm the father of a son that was diagnosed with schizophrenia 15 years ago. We went through a difficult period, but he's now doing marvelously. And he gets a lot of support from the state and the government. He lives in housing that gets some money for that. Housing is extremely important. He has a nice, clean place to stay, and that has enabled him, among other things, has enabled him to go on He's finishing up this year. He'll finish his degree in computer science. He's doing just marvelously. He has schizophrenia. I've seen the need for housing is very extreme for people with mental illness because they usually don't have money. Their lives have been temporarily set back by the illness. They need a nice, safe place as when they come into recovery to live for a while or for an extended period of time. Years ago, I'm on the board of directors of the National Alliance on Mental Illness here in Athens. Years ago, we built along with the Federal Home Loan Bank, which is the same one that would be help finance this one, we built a home for a woman with mental illness in the Plains, and as it's very much similar thing. It was a family, she and her son. Because she has her home, she has a safe place to live. She went out and she has a very nice job. She's on the Disabilities Commission now, and things are going fine for her. But it's extremely important that these good citizens of our county have some help in the short run and have housing. That without housing,
Has been a couple minutes, sorry to interrupt, so if you just wish to wrap up your comments.
That's it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Walker. Again, I have to urge you, it has to be relevant to Title 41 site plan review. The planning commissions cannot really differentiate between type of residences, I mean, other than, single family, all this sort of thing. If it's a residence, it's a residence, and it's not sort of our purvey in B3 to determine the, quality of the residence. So just, again, keep your comments towards Title 41 site plan review, because that's all we're granted permission by the state to rule on. Any other comments from the front row? I believe, no? Anyone from second? Okay, I'll just open up. Any other comments? Go ahead.
Good afternoon. I'm Betty Sexton. I live at 17 Graham Drive in very close proximity to this area. I have a written statement. I'm completely puzzled as to how the same plan was denied in the winter. This was by the zoning board, and then approved because it was interpreted by the zoning board to be less objectionable than a three-story complex, a threatened three-story complex. I challenge that due diligence wasn't practiced perhaps on whether this three-story complex is even in compliance. But anyway, the chain of events is very concerning to me. I maintain that common sense should prevail in this matter. If the zoning board has the leniency of interpretation, they should visit the site. It would be apparent that there is not enough space for a 4-unit apartment building, and certainly would be an anomaly in the east end, not matching the single-family flavor of the neighborhood. There's not adequate parking, there's not adequate ingress and egress to parking, nor is there adequate green space or play space for 4 families. The architect's artistic representation of the building does not show cars just feet from the building, or an accessible trash dumpster, or access to that trash dumpster. I even question how snow will be removed in the winter. To paint a contrasting picture of what is proposed is I never thought to take a photograph of the site as it had been for many years prior. So let me describe a single-story ranch-style home with a detached garage, a beautiful mature weeping willow tree in the front yard, surrounded completely on all 4 sides with green, well-maintained lawn. Half of that space is now concrete that is just inches from the adjacent home. Said home now looks out at cars from her front porch, and a fence blocks her view, which was once trees and greenery. The majority of the lot will unfortunately now be concrete and brick. I believe this negatively affects the values of the homes in the neighborhood. With the increased population density to this area comes more cars, more traffic to Strathmore, Graham, and Charles, already traffic hotspots off East State Street. I also argue that residents will park in the street, making that trafficked area more difficult to maneuver and for nearby residents to get in and out of their driveways, and make it unsafe for pedestrians and bike riders, many who are children, to make their way freely on Graham Drive. Lastly, I and my husband, I speak on our behalf, am offended that the inference is that it is the proposed residents of this apartment complex that we have objection to. I assure you, I would be standing here making the same exact points regardless of who the tenants are. If the intention of having zoning laws is to maintain the integrity of the neighborhoods, the beauty of the city, the safety of its citizens, then construction should not be allowed on the site. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Go ahead.
My name's Gary Hunter, and I'm an attorney representing about over 100 now residents of the area immediately in the vicinity of this proposed construction. I'll keep my comments short since you've limited it to 2 minutes, but I do want to point out several things that make you aware of. One, there is obviously, you may or may not be aware of, a zoning board appeal case pending in the Common Pleas Court concerning the zoning board's action in early May concerning allowing a substitution of this two-story structure that's before you today. There's also a taxpayer suit pending in the Common Pleas Court challenging both the previous action under Title 41 and under the zoning board previous decision. The Common Pleas Court about a half an hour ago declined to issue a preliminary injunction hearing precluding you from acting today, but I will tell you briefly that the standard of proof for a preliminary injunction is clear and convincing evidence. The standard of proof for the trial will be a preponderance of the evidence. So I think there is still a very clear, distinct possibility that the residents of the neighborhood may win their lawsuit. And if you go forward, in my opinion, you are putting the city in a very precarious situation as far as liability potentially to integrated services. I want to point out a few things to you that I think we are in disagreement with your code director on and has informed you. On the three-story structure, he says that there are now 8 or 6 parking spaces needed. He told you, I think, 8, and they were available at the time you decided the decision in March of 2011. Remember, that three-story structure that you approved in March of 2011 includes ground floor commercial, second floor, and third floor residential. The parking spaces of 4 units that he gave you would only be the residential. You have to consider what parking would be necessary for the commercial. And that runs anywhere from another 5 to 10, depending on the use, but they have to be at least the minimum amount of parking spaces set aside. Problem. He tells you that he approved 6, I believe he says, or 8 is there. There are 12 parking spaces on lot adjoining to it, 8 of which are already dedicated by deed restriction to 11 Graham Drive, leaving only 4. And the plans I saw only called for 2 additional on the structure. That's 6. That's not 8. I don't know how he got that the parking was available to you. And if it's not available, you should have sent it to the zoning board for the zoning board to grant a variance on parking. Now he's telling you he reconsidered the parking at 11 due to a change of situation, and they only need 6, not 8, so he's going to release 2 more, and he's going to get some more. That's not your call, folks. That belongs to the zoning board. The zoning board decides whether or not the parking, if it has to be a variance. In this case, clearly there has to be a variance. So I don't see how parking is available under your Director of Code Enforcement's argument. He tells you that lot coverage is appropriate. Again, I don't think so. City Council adopted Ordinance 0411 in January 31st of this year. It became effective about the 1st of March, 2nd of March, something like that. That ordinance says that lot coverage cannot be greater than, I believe, 60% of the total lot area. But you use in the computation the ground footprint of the structure plus the parking areas. In this particular case, you have a whole parking lot next door that you'd have to count in the lot coverage area. You got hard surface parking areas within the structure area itself. In addition, it's not there. When you do the computation, you'll see it goes way over the 60% rule. Their argument I heard from the planning director of code enforcement was it's not relevant because it's a B3 zone. what is the use he's asking you to approve? He's asking you to approve a two-story structure with the zoning board has now approved through a substitution, which we think is inappropriate also.
So is your group good, fine with the elevated one then?
What's that?
See, your group is okay with the...
No, we're not. I told you that there's parking issues with the three-story structure that should have gone to the zoning board, in my opinion, and then come back to you for your approval. So no, we're not satisfied with the it might be more approvable in the long run. It's not approvable today. We believe the lack of posting a sign is a due process violation that'll have to be argued out in court. But I think our argument is the 0411 clearly applies, and you can look at the court filings on how we come to that conclusion. But to simplify it for you, if the use is going to be in a two-story structure, all residential, clearly it's a residential use, but clearly 0411 applies. Those are just a few of the errors that we think, and the reason why you should probably delay your decision today until something further happens in the court case. Thank you.
Nicholas, if I may.
John?
The parking for the commercial space on the ground floor, there would be adequate room for parking underneath the building on elevated version if they were to only take half of that space for commercial. So without knowing exactly what they want to do, I cannot deny them on that, but there is room for additional parking. The parking is adequate for the both buildings combined. We have investigated that in detail. There are now 6 parking spaces on the 11 Graham Avenue side, and there will be required 14 on the 10 Graham Avenue side for a total of 20 parking spaces between the two, 6 of them being deeded across, and that has been worked out. Lot coverage rules and regulations, ordinance 411 strictly specifies R zones only. I know what the use is, but the second floor residential uses are permitted in B zones all over town. So therefore, I don't see how we can consider the second floor as a different coverage rule just because it's residential. It is a permissible use in a business zone.
Yeah.
So therefore, the lot coverage rule is only for the...
residence, the way the zoning code is written, is residence is basically the lightest use.
Correct.
So only R1 can only have single-family residences. And R2, a little bit different, more residence, R3, and then all the way up through B3. And that can have a single family on it, could have a commercial, 10-story building or something, as long as the height restrictions are fine. So, yeah. Okay. Is that all, John, you wanted to add? Yes. Any other comments? Please, podium, please.
Kevin Gillespie, 29 Graham Park Boulevard. Really, is that how I introduce myself? Mm-hmm. So really, just to make myself available to the Planning Commission to ask, I'm not, honor your request to not talk about affordable housing for people with disabilities. I won't talk about that, unless you ask me to. But just know that some of the questions that Mr. Hunter raised may have some fairly simple answers from my point of view, and that we have our architect, and we have Keith Andrews from Athens Metropolitan Housing, and we have our attorney present. So if it's the pleasure of the Planning Commission, if we can help Mr. Paskey make some of these issues clear, we'd be happy to do that. Otherwise, I don't really have anything to say.
Well, one thing that was brought up that I'm a little confused by Gary Hunter previously was the commercial use. I'm not aware of any commercial use that we okayed for this site. I know it's acceptable, but I don't remember reviewing any commercial.
The elevated version would have, if it was remaining elevated, if they were ever finished, the first floor underneath it would be a commercial use.
So you weren't proposing a commercial use or anything? No. It's just sort of speculation at this point.
Well, it comes up in conversation because it's B3 zoning, but we have no intention to. I guess it's worth stating that most definitely our plan is, and we prefer the more pleasing, more accessible aesthetically, which aesthetics is a subjective judgment, but I think from my experience, there's pretty good consensus that the low profile, we call it low profile and high profile, our preference is to build the low profile structure. Looks better, fits better, it's wheelchair accessible, all 4 units, and everything's good about that, but we have 2 viable plans before you today.
All right.
How did you address the play area concern as far as green space, lot coverage?
Because this, I'm not trying to avoid your question. This development has hyper scrutiny now. My simple answer to you is that the families with disabilities that will include but are not limited to mental illness will get very strong support from the service agency that I work for. But beyond that, I'm here as a citizen. It's sort of like Bruce's testimony. My wife and I, Terry, who's here today, will be personally involved, and just like all families, it's no different than my next door neighbors or anybody else. We'll all work together as a neighborhood to solve family problems in a not professional way, in addition to the professional services that will be made available to this group of families. So my own personal stake in this has evolved to become greater. And I can promise you that I have a very personal interest in the welfare of the families, even though I haven't met them yet, that are going to live there. And we'll solve problems about where kids play. I mean, I could say, my goodness, you have a wealth of recreational opportunities just across the busy street. So these families need to teach their children to cross the street, just as I taught my young children how to cross the street, the same street, East State Street, to get to the wealth of recreation and open green space that's available to them because of the excellent location of these apartments. I mean, it's part of the inherent good of building these private apartments for this use in this neighborhood, in this part of this neighborhood. Transportation, to go see a movie, all of that is just amply available. It's just abundant. It's like it's rich for recreational opportunities for children.
In terms of traffic that was mentioned earlier, do you expect a greater heightening of, obviously there will be some, but will there be a greater heightening of traffic congestion in your mind?
No. Well, to the extent that 4 families with children who have to qualify, among other things, with income eligibility, I can't tell you from an expert witness point of view, but from just a practical point of view as a neighbor and working there and living in the neighborhood, it'll be no more or less a demand than there's already in that part of the neighborhood up and down State Street, there are lots of duplexes side by side. So it's approximately the same demand as, a couple of duplexes side by side, which are, there are quite a few of those right along that strip of State Street. But that's not expert testimony, obviously, because I'm in no position to do that. But from a practical point of view as a neighbor, I don't see it as a problem.
We are, I think, looking at the elevated version right now. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Comments were going to be for both,
Okay.
but we're just looking at the elevated now.
okay, looking at the...
Can I excuse myself?
Yes,
Of course.
Okay. Well, somebody's going to have to answer sooner or later here, but I'm sure it's the architects. In terms of the elevated version, I assume, looking at the preliminaries here, the first floor is not blocked off or will be blocked off? Does somebody want to answer that in your...
It's, whether the...
I see it's shaded, yeah, I'm looking at that last page and it's shaded.
I thought that is just open.
Okay, I thought it was too, I'm just asking.
John Valencourt, RVC Architects. I'll tell you what, I'm sort of sick, so I'm going to have David Moran
Go for
answer
it.
any questions about the building. He's very familiar with everything that's been going on, too.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mallon.
David Moran. It's going to be up on pilasters, so it is open.
Okay, and so the utilities that have to come up someplace.
We'll have a chase at one of the pilasters that will be an enclosed space for water, sewer to go down, and electricity and that, yes.
Okay. I guess the reason why I'm asking, because if there's discussion of future commercial development on that, you really have to do quite a bit of renovation, or?
Well, it depends on what the program would entail. But I don't think a chase would take up that much space.
Okay.
Just, enlarge, these columns, these pilasters are only 16 by 16 inches.
So you just widen one of them?
Yeah.
And the base below the raised area would be concrete, paved?
Yeah, at this point it would be concrete, yes.
Okay, just asking. Okay, that's probably all I have.
RJ here? Yeah.
Excuse, I was just directing your question about the play areas. Do you have one of these site plans in front of you? Do you see the grassy areas on either side of the
that's what I
building?
was just asking about.
On the west and east side of the building, there's plenty of grass areas.
Yeah, I mean, it seems...
Is it
Looking at
less?
the residence next to it, it seems pretty much equal in the amount of green space as the...
Right.
And if my vision of the map is correct, this is actually abuts an R2 and not an R1, is that correct?
Correct.
This
Yes.
zone? Yes, okay. So it goes from B3 to R2 to R1.
Yeah, it just sort of steps all through the backyards of the street face
Okay.
buildings with the Rs.
I see. All right. Go ahead, RJ.
Just wanted to talk about somebody who had spoken to us at a previous meeting, who was afraid that something like this could then take place a little bit further down the street. Is there? But at that meeting, you said that this is as far as a structure of this nature could go.
It is a B3 zone, so yes, it's as far as the commercial nature can go. Obviously, you could have a duplex next door. It is a B2, or excuse me, an R2 zone, but that's as far as something like this could go, yes.
And as far as the parking, just one last concern. If you were to sell the building across the street for some reason, I understand that the parking spaces are deeded in, but then basically that's the property owner's problem.
The deed stays with the property, so if they sold it, the deed would stay with it. So that would still be
The
required.
new owner would still have 6
The
spots.
new owner would still have
Or
these
10 grand.
6 spots, correct.
All right, any other comments? Go ahead.
I'm Jeff Dill. I live at 31 Grand Drive, and I'm the president of the Safest Neighborhood Association, which has over 100 members. 54 of the members are litigants in the taxpayer suit. I had a written statement, but a lot of it has been superseded, so I'll try not to repeat. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in opposition to the proposed apartment building development at 10 Grand Drive. As president of Safest, I have the following points to make. I have 4 points to make. First, the Athens City Code, Section 41.01, states that Title 41 review does not replace other applicable sections of the Athens City Code. In other words, the Planning Commission does not have the authority to violate or ignore or grant variances to Title 23 zoning requirements. To To do so with full knowledge of zoning code violations would constitute an abuse of discretion. Second point, the structure as proposed does not conform to the Athens City zoning code and contains a number of code violations which would require substantial variance to be granted by the Board of Zoning Appeal. Such variants have neither been requested nor granted, and we contend that several are needed. That's already been discussed at length. I would just address two of them further. The setback requirement for a business zone is 30 feet. For a residential zone, it's 40 feet. I would contend, and I think the law would support me, that the purpose of the setback is for the residences. This abuts a residential zone and a single-family home on the rear, so a 40-foot setback would seem appropriate for their protection. Second of all, this is entirely a residential use, and the law says that setbacks are I forget the term, as required and regulated. And if you trace the regulations back from business to R3 to R2 to R1, you get to the point where you need a 40-foot setback. Okay? The second point is the parking. My understanding is that in January, an application was made to the Board of Zoning Appeals for a variance in order to have first floor residence, when in a business zone you normally can only have residents on the second and third floor. That variance was denied. Okay? And the three-story plan is an attempt to end run around that denial by calling the first story a business. And if it's a business, even if it's a phantom business that has no current purpose, you still have to anticipate the parking requirements of that business. So there are several issues that are within the authority of the Board of Zoning Appeals to decide. All of our facts and our positions are in a sworn affidavit of Steve Pearson, former Director of Code Enforcement and former Zoning Administrator for the City of Athens, and it's a public record. The next point is the City of Athens spent 6 years and $237,500 of taxpayer money to update its comprehensive plan. The final document was passed into law by City Council in 2007 and continues to undergo periodic reviews. The Ohio Constitution, Article 18, Section 3, and the Ohio Revised Code, Section 713.02, affirm that municipal zoning and planning is based on a comprehensive plan. On page 1 of the Athens Comprehensive Plan, it states that the Northeast State Street neighborhood, which is our neighborhood, should, number 1, have heavy landscaping and fencing buffers adjacent to residential areas. 2, prohibit commercial encroachment. 3, should be low-density, owner-occupied housing, and it should be a neighborhood conservation zone. On page 1-15, the comprehensive plan further states several things. A key problem is buffering between parking lots and residential uses. Fencing and heavy landscaping should be required between such uses. There is undesirable commercial encroachment into the residential area on the east side of Graham Drive. Curbs and sidewalks should be installed. Street parking should be monitored, controlled, and or prohibited. And in fact, we have pictures and videos of the situation as it is now, where all of the integrated services parking on both sides of the street is full, and there are up to 15 cars parked on the street. Businesses should be, still quoting from the comprehensive plan, businesses should be encouraged to heavily buffer parking lots adjacent to residential uses. Commercial encroachment into the neighborhood should be prohibited. The neighborhood should be a low-density, owner-occupied enclave. The neighborhood should be identified as a neighborhood conservation area. with high density discouraged, low density owner occupied encouraged, a non-transient area. Now, the proposed development Graham Drive, and for that matter, the existing parking lot and the expansion of 11 Graham Drive, did not merely ignore the comprehensive plan, but in fact runs completely afoul of the plan and does exactly the opposite of what the plan recommends. For nearly $250,000 of taxpayer money, it would seem that the comprehensive plan should be taken a bit more seriously. My last point, city officials have a duty to enforce the laws as written, uniformly and impartially. If this project is approved, the precedent will result in a steady stream of developers and landlords demanding the same special treatment and arbitrary waivers. How will you respond to such requests? I also would like to present you, we have a request for zoning change in accordance with 23.09.02 of the Athens City Code, and it's basically to rezone the neighborhood in conformance with what the comprehensive plan recommends. I don't want to discuss this today. I just wanted to present you to include on a future agenda.
You say.
Okay? And that's all. Thank you for your time.
Thanks. John, you could maybe touch on some of those items since they are sort of direct questions.
I think somebody else wants to speak back there.
Oh, is there another comment? I'm sorry. I will, again, it's not a commercial use that we reviewed on this project.
And I believe the code says in B3 it's non-residential, it's not business
Yep.
in a B3.
Yeah.
So you can't have residences in the first floor, but it doesn't say what you can't, you don't have to have a business, if I understand correctly.
State your name and address.
Thank you, Bill Walker, and I represent Integrated Services of Appalachian, Ohio. And I just want to respond, and I will make this brief, to Mr. Hunter's comment that he's asking this commission to postpone its decision today or to suspend the hearing today until another time. That is exactly what that association, and through Mr. Hunter, was attempting to do through the injunctive relief that was sought by the probate court, which was denied by the common pleas court here today. Part of his request was to stop the hearing that we are having today. But the common pleas court in its decision is looking to this probate court, to this commission to make its decision. I'm just going to point out in its decision, which I don't think you have, it says defendants, which is us, Integrated, have persuaded this court that many of the flaws alleged by plaintiffs in the review and permit process have been or will be lawfully remedied. Why is coming back before you as we are today? And that argument has been presented to the court, and they've turned it down, asking us, as we have indicated to them, that we are coming back before you to look at this. So I would assert to you that we are here before you properly, that you can't postpone any decision here today. That has been sought much through the probate court, the common pleas court, which was denied. Thank you.
John, did you want to touch on any of the, such as the setback issue, the 30 versus 40 foot?
Well, as Mr. Dill stated, he claims that there are numerous variances that should be granted by the Board of Zoning Appeals, and through our review of the site plan and such, it does meet all the bulk controls, and I understand that they can, petition differently if they wish to do so, but in my opinion, in our opinion, it does meet the bulk controls. So therefore, no variances are required through the Board of Zoning Appeals for anything in regard to this, other than the one that they already did go through for the first floor residential, which was denied.
Right, I can't think of one, like the setback ones, I can't think of. I know with drive-throughs, there's some sort of 200 feet from a R3 or something like that.
The setback one is
If you could just go over that real quick.
in a B3 zone, there is an asterisk next to in the schedule of bulk controls that states except when abutting an R zone, and as you read down through that line, the only place that asterisk applies is to the minimum rear yard, and it's 10 feet, and then it's got a number 4 there, except when adjoining an R zone, then not less than required in that R zone. And the abutting R zone is R2, and the minimum rear yard setback in an R2 is 30 feet. And
Oh,
that's
so it
what-
is matching the R.
It is matching the R2 requirements, yes.
That's good.
So, and then again, we discussed the parking about the first floor without knowing exactly what the plan was going to be. As it is right now, there's nothing there, so no parking's needed.
I
And
mean,
there is...
we can't rule on a future use. I mean, it's
Can't
just
rule
if
on a
somebody
future
has
use.
a
If they
house.
came in and wanted to, if the building did get elevated and they wanted to put commercial on the first floor, yes, they would have to come up with additional parking on the site, and if they didn't, it would be denied. But there is potential room where parking could be put underneath the building if it is elevated. So to maybe, that it could accommodate the business use on the first floor. That would be their design to figure that out.
Other comments? Podium, please. State your name and address. Thank you.
My name's Keith Bower. I live at 27 Graham Drive. I'd like to compliment the city on the posting of the sign that's at 10 Graham Drive. It's been there for 2 weeks. My feeling is, had that sign been posted earlier, there'd have been a whole lot of room for discussion. A lot of these issues would have been addressed prior to today. We're trying to fix something. We're trying to jam the genie back in the bottle or put it somewhere. And had the city followed their own rules and regulations, we wouldn't be here arguing today. Wouldn't mention the gentleman's earlier comment about how he compared his fourplex to two duplexes anywhere in the east end of town, but those duplexes are sitting on two separate lots. And this is a fourplex sitting on one lot. And, I mean, as far as his favorable comments to this fourplex on a tiny little lot in a residential area, we just want the city of Athens. I mean, this signage that you gave us, this sign that you posted 2 weeks ago, gave everybody in the neighborhood a level playing field for the very first time. Until that sign went up, it was tipped against 108, 109 residents of the East End in favor of one. The sign gave us an opportunity to speak and explain to the city reservations, and this may be a fine project, and it may be a good project, but it came to us like a thief in the night, and we just want the city to obey the law.
Glad you have a watch on that.
What is that? It's my timer. Any other comments? No one came in late and comments with the other Title 41 site plan review?
The on grade, you mean?
On Richland Avenue?
Oh.
The Athens Cement Fund? That sign was just posted 2 weeks prior to. No comments? All right, any other comments from the planning commission members?
John, again, just for everybody, from your standpoint, from a technical standpoint, this project fits all the requirements asked of it.
In my opinion, yes. And the elevated version not requiring any variances, the ground floor version requiring the substitution that was granted by the Board of Zoning Appeals.
We can't grant that variance.
That is correct.
I would point out in the comprehensive plan, it also discusses increasing diversity of housing, which includes housing for everything from elderly, low and moderate income, students, as well as home ownership. My memory's correct, it's probably chapter 13. There's a matrix there trying to improve the spectrum of housing that's required. Anybody who works in the city, whether at the university or in the city, as I do, is well aware that housing is a problem for many people who can't afford the housing in the city. We're about, and again, I agree that we need more home ownership, but and sometimes in my previous sitting in the audience, I probably would beat up on the university most abusively because of the lack of housing that they provide for their students, which is really what drives our market right now. But again, this is one of the issues that was looked at in the comprehensive plan. Preservation of neighborhoods, but as well as diversity of neighborhoods. There was discussion of actually trying how to integrate multi-generational housing within the neighborhoods and what that fits. And I know some people would say that comprehensive plan being comprehensive, you can read it like tea leaves, and therefore pull out parts. Of course, we've had arguments on both sides of it for large student complexes all the way down to why not rezone areas. I think a rezoning would be legitimate. My neighborhood was an R2 probably about 15 years ago. They downzoned it. I believe Morris did as well. In fact, if you look in the neighborhoods, there's very few R2s in the area. On the other hand, this is a B3. This is another zone entirely. Preservation of a B3, that's a whole other argument, unfortunately. And I say that because I'm well aware of the business community that does not have adequate locations. Not that I'd want to see, we have lack of manufacturing, we have lack of business zones that fit many of the industries that want to come in. And that's it. As mayor, I'm on a point of that, and I hear that all the time. I can see a legitimacy in trying to change the R2s. Again, downzoning would constitute many people are taking. The duplexes that are there would be grandfathered. Somebody who wished to add a duplex will not be able to do it. I guess it's something for us to consider down the line with a review of the comprehensive plan.
Yeah. I was just looking at the map. It was at least a B3 as recently as 2008. No sooner. I don't think when we approved that, there weren't many changes. We didn't make any changes. It was just approving the official map. So.
And I think the actual change for now residential in a B3 on the first floor was changed in 2004. I'd have to backtrack on that.
Okay.
Probably I'd ask Ed Bond for this long institutional memory on that because he was part of the planning and development committee that put that together.
Yeah.
So that's been a relatively recent change to the requirement that residents should be on a B3 in a first floor.
Again, the Plan Commission can only rule on what is allowed per zone as the zones currently stand. If there are issues with you feel that are uses that are allowed per zone, that is something, again, to pursue in a different capacity other than in this hearing, or not really hearing, but case review. City Council has not of late been too interested in changing zoning. We did recently, the Plan Commission had approved the change of the end of Court Street, which is currently B3 to B2D, and it did get turned down. So I don't know how interested City Council is in making changes, or if it's, again, I hope they look at it by a case-by-case basis and not by just flat out against making zoning changes. So that is something to pursue, but not, again, at this time frame. There any other comments by our members, either in the audience or Planning Commission members?
May I just ask a question? Have any of you been on Graham to look at the property?
Yeah, I believe we all have, yes.
You have?
Yes. Yeah, we, I guess full disclosure, we did vote on the elevated one, but we're the ones probably that we're responsible for suggesting the BZA should look at a well, we couldn't suggest to the BZA, we suggested it to the architects and the owner that we prefer the lower height one just to fit in with the next door house better than something that is, though the neighboring house is tall, not that tall.
I was out there as late as yesterday, and I go through there regularly. Again, it's mostly one-story housing, some two-story housing. There's a smattering, as I say, of duplexes in the periphery between the B3s and the R1 zones. So it's a mix. And from my point of view, when I seen this, I thought it was. I still think it's a good use of the property. And I say that because I believe that we do have the need. As late as 2 weeks ago, I had Mr. Wassman, Keith Wassman of the Good Works coming to us and say, we've been turning away, I think he said 60 people, so that he has to assume that that's halfway through the year. He's going to have to turn away another 60 families and members. And that's just one side of the story. I look at the presence of integrated service across the street as a good chaperone. They'll be there to see what goes on. I work with I have 2 appointees on the Metropolitan Housing Authority, which will be managing this organization, this structure. I think they do a good job as well. And again, they could tell you the need as well for this type of housing, for any type of housing really that will fit a whole spectrum of citizens.
Any other questions or comments? Any further discussion?
No, I assume we're doing a motion for one or the other or both?
We would have to do them all separately, each of them separately.
I'd like to do the first one, would be the one that was approved in, was it March?
Yeah, March 16th. We never saw the second story, I'm sorry,
The on-grade one?
On-grade.
I think that's what they're calling it, on-grade and elevated.
Yeah.
Yes.
So is there a motion to
I
accept or table or, go ahead.
I move that we accept the elevated version of the Title 41 for 10 Graham Drive, with the conditions being met that were discussed by the staff. And this is a preliminary structure, plat.
Correct.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? No opposition? Okay, is there a motion for the on-grade Graham Drive housing? I'll put forward a motion to, wait, is there a third one? No, okay.
Well, there is. So that would have been for the one that was back in March 16th, and then they did reapply for the other one, just on the technicality of the sign. So you might want to vote on that very same thing. It's identical, but it was done twice.
For the elevation.
For the elevated version, correct.
I'm a little bit confused why we're doing it twice.
Me too, but it's my guidance to do so.
I mean, is there an appeal of the BZA case, I guess? So,
well, but
is that why we're doing it twice?
That may be the issue.
That's what...
That the appeal to the BZA for the first version could be part of the reason, but that you just voted on again. So let's do a vote on the new application as well for the elevated version, which has been posted for 2 weeks and gone through the plan review as it's
So I guess
supposed to.
I'm wondering, do we table the on-grade version until the BZA? I mean, we really can't accept an on-grade
The BZA has approved it,
project.
though.
I don't see why we'd ever vote on the on-grade one, I guess, is the...
Say that again?
The on-grade one, we can't, I mean, we could only vote on the elevated, and BZA can make a decision whether the residents could be
The
located.
BZA's already approved the substitution for the on-grade
Oh, so
version.
after the substitution's approved, we could...
It has been, and it has been. It has been.
All right, so...
Yeah. So,
Just these two, then?
well, he wants a third one for some strange reason, and I don't know why they're
Third
not
one
the
of those
same.
are exciting.
Okay. So did I get you had a motion, I guess, for the...
I'll put forward a motion for just the on-grade version.
Okay.
Same one, second that motion.
I'll second.
Again, with the conditions, same staff review conditions being...
And of course, the BZA has approved this substitution, I believe, which is going to be contested as well, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's all still being contested, but again, it's outside of the Plan Commission's purvey.
Right.
Sorry. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor of accepting the on-grade of the same case, 1102?
Okay, I see somebody jumping out of their seat there. Do you want to say something, Mr. Walker?
No,
Oh, okay.
I'm just trying to hear. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, sorry.
I was trying to make that. My
Yeah.
apologies.
Okay.
Oh, no, that's fine. All right, so the motion has been seconded, so all those in favor of accepting 1102 integrated services, the on-grade with the staff conditions being met, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, no opposition. And now explain the third one we're going for.
It's the same as the elevated version, but they did another application of it recently in case something turned up on the first one.
Oh, with maybe if the engineer changes, maybe, I
Yes,
guess.
so it's the same project, but At the time everything was going on, they resubmitted for a second time of the very same application of the first time, which you approved already. So it's my opinion that since there is an application that's been put forth of the same project a second time, that you go ahead and vote on it.
All right, just for clarification, 6 sharp, the elevated one that we first voted on, that is 1102A. The on-grade one will be 1102B. And the elevated resubmittal or a new application would be 1102C. Just
Thank you for the nomenclature.
we have to give it something.
Okay, I move we accept the Title 41, 1102C. Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any further discussion? Okay. We do appreciate your comments, and, this is something that you're still concerned with. You, by all means, should pursue it, but the Planning Commission really can't rule outside of the zoning code. Okay, that concludes our cases for the day.